Hello, everyone. My name is going to be presenting a research study titled "The Beneficial Effects of Physical Activity. Is it down to your genes?" So this article is a systematic review and a meta-analysis from the University of Sydney. It was published in Sports Medicine, and it had an impact factor of about 5.7. The main goal of this study was to understand why some people respond, better to exercise than others, and to see whether our genes play a role in that. So moving on to the introduction, we all know that physical activity is one of the best things that you could do for your health and your longevity. It lowers risk, keeps your heart strong, and helps you manage your body weight. But not everyone experiences the same results, right? So some people lose fat or gain fitness quickly, while others hardly change at all. Researchers believe that these differences might be partly genetic, such as shared family traits could make some people more, quote, responsive to training. And this study reviews evidence from twin and family research actually matters in the way that we respond to exercise. So the purpose of this study was pretty simple, to find out if genetic factors influence how people respond to physical activity. So the authors looked at studies that measured changes in body composition. These are things like BMI, fat mass, and weight circumference, and in cardiorespiratory fitness, measured by VO2 max. So they compared um, monozygotic twins, I think I'm saying that correctly, who share 100% of the same genes, to dizygotic twins who share about 50%. Hopefully, I'm saying those correctly. But so, if the identical twins responded more similarly to exercise than the fraternal twins, that would show a genetic influence. So moving on to the methods, the study followed the PRISMA guidelines for systematic reviews and meta-analyses. The authors searched metadatabases like Medline, Embase, Sport Discuss, and Web of Science for studies that use twin or family designs. They ended up with 14 studies total, 9 twin studies, and 5 family studies. They included 83 twin pairs and 199 families. They looked at how each group changed after their exercise interventions and calculated the correlation between pairs to estimate the heritability, basically how much of the change came from shared genes and a shared family environment. Okay, moving on to the results. So the results for body composition showed strong genetic effects. Identical twins had much higher correlations than fraternal twins in how their BMI and fat mass changed after exercise. For example, the pooled correlation for BMI was 0.69, which means about 70% of the variation in BMI response came from genetic or shared family factors. Um, the fat mass was 0.58, the body fat percentage 0.55, and the waist circumference was 0.50. So together, these findings suggest our genes play a big role in how our bodies change with exercise. So when a diet intervention was added to exercise, the genetic influence became even stronger. For example, the correlation for BMI rose from 0.58 to 0.79 when diet was controlled. Gender differences also appeared. So females showed a higher correlation for fat mass at 0.85, meaning genes had a major impact on fat loss, while males showed a higher correlation for fat-free mass. And this was 0.80, which relates to muscle gain. So even though everyone benefits from exercise, the type of change we see um, can depend both on gender and genetics. Okay, and finally moving on to the results for the cardiorespiratory fitness. I know there's a lot of things going on the screen, but basically the results for cardiorespiratory fitness were lower than for body composition. So for VO2 max, the correlation between identical twins was about 0.38 to 0.39. This means that genetics still played a role, but the environment and training factors definitely had a bigger influence. In simpler terms, fitness adaptations like aerobic capacity might depend more on how you train rather than your DNA. So females showed slightly higher numbers than males, but the sample sizes were too small to draw conclusions. And that takes us to our conclusions, right? So studies found that shared family factors, which include genetics, play a major role in how our bodies respond to exercise. The effects are stronger for body composition rather than for fitness levels, as I mentioned before. So when diet was controlled, the genetic impact increased even more. This connects to previous research by showing why individuals respond so differently to the same training programs. And I would say practically, this means that coaches and trainers should personalize programs based on each person's response instead of expecting everyone to improve the same way, which could be used in the strength and conditioning field a ton. Moving on to the strengths and weaknesses. So there were some clear strengths in this study. It was the first meta-analysis to quantify familial influence on exercise response. It did follow the strict Prisma guidelines, and it combined both twin and family designs, which made the findings a lot more reliable. But there also were some limitations too. Many studies had small sample sizes, and the training programs were not that consistent in the duration or the intensity, which is very hard to monitor, I feel like. Another weakness was that it's hard to separate genetic effects from shared environmental ones, since twins often live and eat and live their lives very similarly. So I just want to make a slide just to show the four main takeaways from this review. Um, so first, genetics matter. Shared family factors explain a lot why some people see better exercise results. Second, changes in body composition show more genetic influence than imbalance. Third, diet and gender can affect how much genes do play a role. And finally, fourth, the future of training should focus on personalization. This could be using data or genetic insight to set realistic goals for each individual and help them to achieve their goals. Okay, and moving on to the future studies. So the author's take was that larger twin and family samples are needed to get more precise heritability numbers. They also suggested including molecular genetic data to find specific genes that drive exercise response. In the future, standardized training protocols would make studies easier to compare. And so, my sort of personal take is that these findings are huge for sports science and coaching, especially for strength and conditioning coaches. Um, this can be used at any level from the high school to collegiate to even the pro level. Um, and also just in day-to-day life, right? So understanding genetic variation can help trainers customize plans for athletes and patients. And it also reminds us that this so-called non-responders um, to exercise might have more of a biological reason and not as much of a motivation problem. So I think that's something definitely that we could look into in the future. And that pretty much wraps up my presentation on the genetic influence of physical activity and its responses. The study shows that while exercise is important for everyone, our individual results can definitely depend on our genes, our family environment, and our lifestyle. So thank you for listening, and I hope you got something out of today's presentation. Thank you.